how can I possibly best convey the experience of last night? Oh, yeah, you could just listen to my voice. This is the ArsenalVision Post-Match Podcast. My name's Elliot Smith, the Blackman, Twitter, Yankee Gunner. I feel badly when I sound like this for you, but I sound like this for you so that you can fully engage with the experience of last night. An 8 p.m. kickoff. I think someone said to me it's our first ever 8 p.m. Saturday kickoff in a Premier League fixture, making room for the blockbuster League Cup final that'll be going on about 90 minutes from now. Really a special night, and a night that I think the club, to say needed, it might be a little heavy-handed, but given the circumstances in the league as they stand and the experience out in Porto, I think it is something that we needed, and I'm glad we got it. So I'm going to talk to Clive about the game. There is an instant reaction with Phil and Paul and Clive and myself from the ground that you can check out. We'll obviously be doing our usual stuff over there. And there is a video journal of the week in Porto, the traveling out there, the time with the other away fans, the experience at the Stadio do Dragão. What I would say is that I can see why people get addicted to doing it. Because even when the football's not good, the camaraderie and the experience, and even a bit of that pride of saying, I was there when the Galeno shot went in the 94th minute, like, it infects you. It gets under your skin. And I had a chance to eat dinner with Tim when I got back into London. And, he said the FOMO was kicking in until that shot went in. But he said even when it goes badly, the experience is really something special and unique. And I can see how people get addicted to it. Having said that, both for my carbon footprint and for my bank account, it is not possible for me to follow Arsenal home and away. So maybe more of a once-in-a-lifetime experience than an every-time experience. If you could leave us a review, it would be helpful. I keep hearing that's how pods get discovered now, is by reviews. So if you could do that, that'd be great. If not, I'm just glad you're here. Anyway, Clive's on Twitter, ClivePFC. Hello, Clive.
Hello.
How are you feeling today? Physically feeling?
I've done all right. I mean,
good for you. God bless you.
Porto was a lot of walking, shall we say. I felt like I was in the Tour de France sometimes, looking at them hills.
Well, you were wearing the spandex bike shorts.
And so, yeah, that was good. And yesterday was one of my favorites, mate. Sort of leaving the house about 2:30 for an 8 o'clock kickoff. That spells disaster. And getting into Upper Street around 4 and then rolling into various other places, going to the ground. Yeah, that's my sort of day. I really enjoyed it. Really nice people. And recovery is ongoing, shall we say.
Yeah, and before we get into the game specifically, obviously the club put out a lot of messaging on social media. They emailed people and things, wanting the ground to be loud, wanting the atmosphere to be special and raucous for the game. And I would say people being out all day didn't hurt. Interesting game because the jeopardy was taken out of it so quickly by our performance that then I think it quieted down. But I do think it was loud. I do think we came out and created an atmosphere. Curious about your just feeling around the atmosphere that's created, the scarves, the flags. There's a stunning picture of Bukayo Saka in front of a giant flag after he scored. That's definitely one to check out if you haven't seen it. But I thought the ground was really, really fired up until the jeopardy sort of seeped out of the game. But in the beginning, it was loud. It was a real cauldron.
Yeah, and to be honest, there's been a few games that, if you compare that one to Liverpool was ridiculously good. That could be like the best one. But I'm sure I said that about Spurs last year.
We've had a lot of them.
Man United, I'm sure I said it about that one as well. Bournemouth, well, who knew that Bournemouth at home would be that? So unfortunately, I've been at all of those. So it's been, but I thought Liverpool was electric because maybe the game was a bit tougher. And you're right, Elliot. Once the third goal went in, you can get the cigars out, right? Couldn't you? And enjoy yourself. So it was really good. For me, the whole day was good. So and the game, unlike Porto, where everything was fantastic, apart from the actual football, this was like fantastic, and the football was good. So yeah, great.
Yeah. So I guess the best place to start is with the lineup, the usual sort of place to go. And Clive, I think I feel very strongly about this, and I know others disagree, but I'll say it because no one can stop me. I have a microphone in my hand. I think the lineup he picked for Newcastle is maybe the lineup he might have liked to have picked for Porto. But there are a few things we don't know. One, Jorginho's been carrying some kind of knock, and we don't know if he was fit enough to start both games, and maybe he was held for this game. I do think when you win 11-0 in 2 away games, I don't want to say puts pressure, because I don't think Mikel feels any pressure other than to do what he feels is right. But I think it creates a sense that it would be silly to change it. And I can understand going with a lineup in midweek that had just won 11-0 on aggregate in 2 away fixtures. But this lineup for me, I really think we saw the importance of Jorginho in this one. I think he got the lineup spot on. And while it may be harsh to drop Trossard, I really like the way this lineup looked. I mean, obviously the way we played, but I'm curious what you think of his decision to go with Kai sort of up front and Jorginho in next to Declan Rice.
Excuse me. It's the only change we could really make, wasn't it? So
yeah, no one else was fit enough to be back.
Let's have a discussion around lineups and style of play. Because for me, it's not just taking Jorginho out. What you do is you then put Kai Havertz at centre forward. And then your front two press becomes Havertz and Odegaard. Very similar to what it was like against Liverpool. So a situation where we had a very high energy, high pressing game, and they'd give us the ball back and then we can build up. So Jorginho looks good in that scenario. He can stay in the pocket and he can just rat-a-tat that ball around. But really, the front four are the energy. They provide the front-footedness. They force the ball long, and then White, Kiwior, everyone else can step in, all defenders can step in, win it, and we retain the ball and keep people where we want. So it's not just about replacing Jorginho, it's about how we play dynamically. When we have the away game team, when we have almost like the double false nines with Trossard and Havertz, that's another way of playing, and where Odegaard drops deeper alongside Rice. And so we have a box that way, and the wingers are on the outside, almost like 2-3 forwards. That's a style of play. We have the Rice-Havertz style of play, where basically Rice does two men's jobs. You try to get into a front five, Havertz goes forward, switches positions with whoever the centre forward is. So we have different ways of playing. We have another way of playing when Zinchenko plays. We double up with Rice and Zinchenko at the base, Odegaard high. Havertz creates a left top box player. So we have that way of playing. So what we have when we get people fit, and this is a challenge, the challenge is, what team do we pick for what game we want to play? And that is also, you've got to categorize games. I want to play a high pressing game here to have actually my centre forward. Do you see what I mean? It's not just about Jorginho. It's about the right team for the right game on the right day. I think that's going to be the challenge going forward when we get people fit.
Yeah, and I do want to praise Kai Havertz's pressing. I mean, I think you can't, this is what's interesting, right? People will sometimes roll their eyes when you praise someone for doing things they regard as basic, but we keep hearing this saying, Arsenal are the best out-of-possession team in the world. You can't be the best out-of-possession team in the world if players aren't doing really valuable and important things out of possession. And, Kai Havertz with 7 ball recoveries in this game, launched a lot of dangerous attacks recovering the ball. I think maybe it was TNT Sport that did it, but there was a really nice, it was Match of the Day that did it, actually. A really nice breakdown of Odegaard's running and Havertz running, and the way they immediately closed down the space and made it impossible for Newcastle to get out at all. I want to just ask you something quickly, a more generalized question before we get back into specifics. Newcastle were horrendous. And I think there is this thing that can happen when you're very good, that everybody looks horrendous. Burnley were horrendous. West Ham were horrendous. Liverpool were well below their best, so on and so on and so on. And I don't know how to measure the distance between how bad Newcastle were and how good we were. They couldn't get out. They couldn't put up a fight. In that first half, I think it's as dominant as I've seen us be against anyone. Not in terms of scoring and chance creation, but in terms of just taking the ball away from them and absolutely giving them no life whatsoever in terms of getting it past the halfway line. Do you agree with that? Is that one of the most dominant halves of football you've seen from us in terms of territory control? And how much do you portion to Newcastle being crap versus us just being sensational?
I thought we were good. I'm not interested in them. I respect oppositions, and I didn't feel like the game was over at halftime. I just felt we were playing really, really well, and I just wanted to see the game out. I was conscious of the fact that we played on Wednesday night, didn't fly back till Thursday afternoon. The recovery was light, while Newcastle were at home watching the 6 o'clock news, right? And they weren't doing anything. So I'm always conscious of a drop off in the second half physically, and so I wanted that third goal real quick. So and then I could relax. But so yeah, I sort of respect Newcastle. They brought in Livramento into left back to try to manage Bukayo Saka. Well, that didn't work, did it? Martinelli and Saka I thought were excellent, and so they had a plan to sort of manage us in wide areas, work hard in midfield, and try to release Isak on the break. It just didn't happen because we put so much pressure on their exit passes that we just kept retaining the ball, and I think that's the key. The key is our off the ball work, Elliot. You're absolutely right. We've been so focused on attacks clicking, but all season our off the ball work has been really, really good. If you can think of the one or two times when it wasn't good, it was probably Fulham. That's probably the only game we haven't dominated. Do you see what I mean? With our possession play, I'm not saying we dominated Liverpool for the entire game at Anfield, but we were comfortable for large stretches, right? So yeah, it is a big part of what we do. And yeah, Newcastle generally away from home are not great, but I do respect them as a team, although I don't respect them as a club. That makes sense, and how they operate against us. So yeah, I was happy with I respect them more of a team than I do Burnley and and West Ham, etc. They're a better side than them.
We owed them one, though. We definitely owed them one. And Odegaard made comments after the game saying, we wanted to put things right after Porto and after what happened last time we played Newcastle. I'm sure Mikel was drilling that into their heads, and you could tell like Bruno Guimaraes wanted no part of it. Threw himself to the ground on a couple of occasions. He's a nasty player, and they just bullied him off out of the game. Yep, exactly. Yep. Some really crazy stat. No, what's happened to Bruno Guimaraes at Newcastle, by the way, is really interesting because he came out storming, and I mean, he's just his behavior and his attitude, I think, has robbed him of what he could be as a footballer. But
can I just stop you there for a second, Elliot? Because you may not have seen this, but maybe people who are watching TV have seen it. There was a interview with Edu pre-game, and he doesn't do many interviews, so I just watched it, and it's in my head really. And he spoke about the type of players they were looking for, and he kept mentioning the word what players transmit and their character and their attitude. And a couple of players that fans like Bruno. Some fans wanted Bruno when he came in, was coming over. And I look at what he transmits to the crowd, and I don't like it. I don't like it. There's a lot of fans who like to see Ivan Toney coming in. After you listen to that Edu interview, I don't think Ivan Toney's coming in. I look at what he transmits, how he plays, how he moves. For me, he walks too much, right? And in between plays. And I don't think he transmits the right things. That may sound controversial, but it's just my opinion. And when we're looking for the next phase of player, we've got great examples in our team right now. They may not have a fantastic first touch all the time. They may not, but their body language and what they transmit to the crowd is uniformly excellent. So I just want to put that point up.
Yeah, Bruno Guimaraes reminds me of another Bruno over at United, a different United, Manchester United. Good time players, And so it was nice to see him, I think, in the mud, as the kids say. There's some just wild data around Arsenal coming out. I think the Premier League account tweeted out, I think, was it 7 halves where Arsenal have now scored over 2 goals, the first time in Premier League history. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Arsenal have scored in February half as many goals as Manchester United have scored this season. I happen to like that one. Enjoyed watching Alex Iwobi beat them at Old Trafford, as my shout for them finishing bottom half is still on. It is still on. How about this? In 6 Premier League games in 2024, Arsenal have allowed shots worth a combined 1.88 expected goals. The second best record in that time is Manchester City, who have allowed a combined 6.77 expected goals.
Oh, wow.
5 expected goals fewer than the second best team in just those 7 games. So really extraordinary data that we're piling up. We're very, very good. And I think focusing on the second goal is actually an interesting conversation because I think it's a lot of things that we haven't seen. It was a lot of dynamics that I think are really worth digging into. We win the ball back. Martinelli makes a really interesting run across the center of the pitch into the right half space in the box. Jorginho sees it and he plays it. He plays it and he plays it excellently. And Martinelli executes excellently. back to the center of the box where Kai Havertz, if you watch it, it was almost Aubameyang-esque the way he runs in the box. He makes a run for the defender, and then he moves back to the center and finds the open space and slots home. He should have had two, obviously missed a big chance early in the second. But Clive, I like that goal because I think it's an interesting variation on a theme and maybe just a little bit some of the stuff you and I talked a lot about when we were at the game on Wednesday, which is play that ball. And Jorginho plays that ball, and look at the dividends it pays. And I think you can look at this game where Jorginho had double the touches of Declan Rice and double the passes of Declan Rice. And I think they each were able to play the role that they really specialize in very nicely in this game. And he was man of the match, I think rightly so. But what do you think of that goal and what it says about some of the patterns of play that we can develop with him?
Well, you can only play the pass if you got the run. It's as simple as that, And maybe
there
sometimes
were two runs, by the way. It could have gone to either of them.
Yeah, you only can play the pass if you got the run, but maybe players run when they know the player can pass to them. That makes sense. If they know the ball, he can find me. I'm gonna make the run. I thought Martinelli's activity was excellent. I think he's had a great week. Actually, he may not have a goal to show for it. I'm not sure if he has a goal or even an assist, but I think he's been excellent. I think he's been really playing his heart out. Even though not every touch has gone well for him, I think he's really been an example. So yeah, I think the Declan Rice Jorginho thing, I'm pausing on that one, Elliot, because I'm not sure I want that pass differential. But on a day when you want to go and press somebody into their half and keep them there, and Declan Rice's role became much more an off-the-ball role, following in behind, making sure he could read the exit pass out and keep us in there. So his role was different. And every now and again, he needs supporting. He needs not to be carrying everything in his rucksack and carrying everything on his own with everyone about 30 yards away from him. He just needs a bit of support on occasions. And if you are going to be aggressive in our fullback area, so I thought Kiwior and Ben White were both excellent and active on that Havertz goal, that our fullbacks are both in the box. So that tells you when you've got the extra people behind you, there's a bit of freedom there. And if you're looking at the evolution of this team, I still think it's in the fullback areas, particularly left back. I think there's room there to do other things, And so yeah, I love that goal too. I mean, it was a thing of beauty. So the cutback reminded me of the Smith Rowe against Spurs goal when Saka cut it back and he just appeared out of a line and just side-footed it in. That to find that space in the box, you need movement. You need people moving around, and I thought it was really good, really good.
It was really, really good, and I take your point. Like please don't interpret what I'm saying as Declan Rice can't pass the ball. I just think
I think
because I'm not saying that.
I think it's a discussion about who we want to be. The ball, I think it's a discussion. I'm not sure if I want that Declan Rice going forward. But hey, look, I'm not saying what we really need is a number 8, right? A number 8 ahead. That's what we really need. And then someone who has to share the ball.
And let's be honest too. This was the first time in a while we've had a midweek game. It's 3 games in a week. I think one of the things that was really good about the way we stormed out of the gates and beat them early is that I thought we looked like we had slightly tired legs late, and very, very, very nice for Mikel for a third league game in a row anyway, to be able to sub off key players at 65 minutes, at 70 minutes, keep the squad turning over. And we'll get into some of the subs in a minute. And great to see Jesus back on the bench. Obviously, didn't have to use him in this game. Probably wasn't quite ready to play in this game, but that means he's very, very close. And the funny thing about playing this well is it's going to give Mikel a headache pretty soon, because when the likes of Zinchenko are fit and ready to go, and Jesus, and maybe even a Thomas Partey and a Tomiyasu, how do you take the shirt off of Kiwior? How do you take the shirt off of Trossard? How do you take the shirt off guys like Jorginho? Just let's spare a minute for Kiwior just really quickly.
Oh yes, I'm glad you said that.
I mean, I think there are some people that say football is a weak link sport, and that actually it's your weakest link that can cost you. And you look at this team, and Kiwior has gone from being a guy where say, well, he's not a fullback, it's not fair to play him there, to not looking like a weak link at all, to scoring goals now, to recovering well. I think when you consider that Zinchenko is probably our quote unquote, I'll put quotes around all this stuff, first choice left back, and Timber might have been our first choice left back, and Tomiyasu might have been the second choice left back. Kiwior might be the fourth choice player in that position, and he's taken it on, and he looks great, and he's saying, "This is my shirt. Who's going to come take it off me?" I think he deserves a lot of credit.
Yeah, I think let's just take our minds back to Fulham away when he was slightly. So it's I think it might be his first game, maybe his first game in a long time, and hooked at halftime, wasn't he? Hooked at halftime, was playing inside, was playing on the outside, was
You're
not
very
getting
critical
out.
of that.
I was very critical of how he was used for his first game. I felt he should have been the one given the complex role. It should have been Ben White. And look what we're doing a little bit later on. Also, we did that in this game, but I was very,
Can I just say one thing about that? If
Mhm.
Mikel is going to listen to the podcast, I think the least he could do is leave a review. Anyway,
Yeah,
just a point.
I tend to agree with you there. And basically, if you think about that situation, and I remember a couple of passes in that game when people had it around Kiwior and they passed the ball past him to get to somebody else, and he didn't step in to take it. Do you see what I mean? And so when you're lacking confidence, you're a little bit uncertain. I think you could see it. But now everyone gives him the ball, don't they? And player trust is key. You can always tell when the player's accepted. And he's getting faster. He's getting fitter. He's getting a rhythm. He's turning up in the box. I mean, he scored against Liverpool in a diving header on the penalty spot. Remember that one? And he just appeared in the box. So he looks free. The language is obviously getting better for him. He's smiling. When you look at all the training pics, he's always on his own at the back, sort of thing. He looks part of the group. And if you look at this team now, Elliot, there's an elite group developing. And the team that played here, obviously, if you add Trossard to it, Jesus, you had the injured players, and I would put Kiwior in that elite group now. The elite group. So you got your 14 in this game, really. Sorry, 12, 11, 13 in this game. And then you've got your key players. But Kiwior now is one of those people that I think is at Arsenal standard. And that's a great find from Fulham away.
Yeah. He got his goal off a set piece, as did Gabriel, although he didn't get the goal. It was an own goal, a somewhat comical own goal, but a lovely leap and header from Gabriel, who was once again sensational. And I think it's really nice to see him getting his flowers. He got to wear the armband for a bit in this game. I think I said this on the instant reaction, but I'll repeat it because we didn't get a chance to really dive into it because of #long day of drinking. We're going to look back on this season, depending on what we achieve, and even, not depending on it, because we're just a fantastic team, full stop. And I think there's going to need to be articles written and videos done by people smarter than me on just how impactful set pieces have been for this team. You look at football, and there's a lot you don't control. You think about the NFL. People hate the NFL for what, right? Oh, it's stop and go. It's stop and go. It's stop and go. But the NFL is a place where coaching can really matter, because every play is a chance to design something to fool the opposition. Every single play, right? Football doesn't give you that. That's one of the beautiful things about it. It's a flow sport, except when you're playing Porto. But set pieces are a chance for coaching to make I'm not saying tactics and coaching don't make a difference. You know what I mean? But you can micromanage that individual moment. Clive, I think it is a testament to the culture Mikel has instilled that everything is managed. Everything. The way we try to get the crowd involved, the way set pieces are managed, right? The way this team does everything is managed. And we probably don't talk about set pieces enough. In fact, sometimes I moan, where are the open play chances? Where are the open play goals? But the set piece contribution this season is something that probably deserves its own section of this pod and a couple episodes in the summer.
Yeah, it's not, if you take that point out broader, Elliot, I think this team that's really well coached, isn't it? In all aspects. And it's not very often that we have the wrong approach for the day. And if we do, we tend to talk about it. It seemed to me that we didn't play forward enough in Porto. It's quite clear. We all wanted it a bit more forward. We know we got to control the European tie over 180 minutes, but we missed some play forward opportunities. What did we do yesterday? Moving the emphasis is our team forward, move Rice forward, move Havertz forward, have someone who wants to play forward passes in behind. Everything was forward, quickly, forward. You can see
First
what's going to
time
happen.
too, yeah.
First time, you can see what's going to happen against Porto. We're going to run them off their feet, right? It's going to be forward. We're not going to let that happen again. So they learn lessons very, very quickly. And every aspect of the game is well thought through. And I don't use the word overcoach. It's just coached. And when you see a team taking the game seriously, and every aspect of it, to throw-ins, to everything, although I think that Ben White's got to speed up, mate, on his free kicks and his throw-ins. That's the only thing.
Is he doing a bit? It almost seems intentional. It's the weirdest thing. He takes forever.
No, so I watched a little bit this morning, and there was a free kick in the first half when he stood there on the right-hand side. He wasn't sure where to go, inside or backwards, but he took so long, they crept forward. He goes backward, goes back to Raya, and he had a slight miscontrol. He got out of it, but if Raya would have stepped on the ball, he would have got stick. But I'll be having Ben White for taking so long to take it. They crept forward and basically they got a press on. Move the ball quickly. Anyway, I'll go in. But move the ball quickly. It's important that we keep the tempo going. Don't let people come onto you. So I'm not buying this on purpose. I'm not. So yeah, I love the fact they care about every single game, every single moment, every single game, and you want your team to be. I use the word elite already on this podcast, but we look like an elite coaching, well-coached team. We really do. Not if it's will go our way, but they're trying, aren't they? They're trying to make the margins go their way.
Yeah. It's great to see, and there's a certain joy that comes from the open play goals because of the flow and the dynamism and the art of it. But I think if you're a coach, there might be something a little sweeter about a set piece goal because you can say it's just how we drew it up.
Yeah.
It's your goal in a way. And Gabriel proving to be a very, very dangerous weapon from those moments. So a couple other little details here that I want to call out. And I think as we look at where we're at right now and how good we are, it is a very collective situation we find ourselves in. I think as a group, we talk about the out of possession stuff. Overall, we're excellent. I think even in a great collective group, there has to be a star or two. There has to be someone that stands out and that really shines above the rest. Above the rest might be the wrong way of putting it. I'm winding my way to my point poorly, but it's the Bukayo Saka thing.
You could just said that about a minute ago.
Yeah. I know. But the brain's in like second gear, mate. Like it's not great. But like there's something, I don't want to do the at the ground. You can see this, but there are certain differences
at the ground.
Like just watching the way players move a little bit, the way they touch it, the way defenders stand off them. There's just something that you can see when someone's a star. I had the chance to watch Michael Jordan play basketball in person, and like it's different. You can't describe how it's different, but it's different. And Saka has that. He has the it factor. I love the way he took his goal. I thought he was fantastic again in this game. And now he's up to 20 goals and assists for the season already. And like, there's obviously the whole meme about Rio. Is he world class? And, I think they're having a bit of fun with that now, even on social media and stuff. But he's 22. I think it's starting to dawn on me what we might have on our hands. Not like a great player, but that next echelon, like really at the next table where you can start mentioning some names in the same breath as Saka that are, at the absolute top. And I'm just curious what you think of the next step on the ladder that he's taking. Where is he right now in world football? Because to me, I'm losing track of it. It's very, very high up there. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, what he lacks is what we all hope, is that he can win multiple league and big cup trophies at Arsenal. Because if he does, and he's a big part of it, there's enough room on the concourse outside the ground to put him into bronze one day in the future. I mean, he could own every record in the club, appearance record, the lot. If we want to be that club and he wants to be that player with us, then everything's there for him. It really is. And you take this game, Elliot. They put a sharp fullback on him, and I watched the way he dealt with him, right? And he dealt with him. You might be able to post him up every now and again and just make him go inside, but he goes inside when he's ready, right? So he's in control of the fullback. Then what he did to Livramento very, very cleverly was his secondary movement once he knocked the ball off was so much more mature than it used to be. He used to get the ball, knock it off, and then stay wide. Now he's get the ball, knock it off, and he's gone. He's gone to hurt you somewhere else. And you have to pass him on. And if you don't pass him on quickly, he's getting it back. And he can control it. And he can tackle you when you're in the box. He can get shots off on his right foot. And he's doing things in the interior lanes now, which teams they're not set up for in their coaching. They're not set up, in their analysis. He just goes free. Martinelli goes free. This is a whole new concept. And I think this is another thing he's adding to his game. You know, he is wonderful. He's a centre forward when he receives it back to goal. He's a flying winger when he goes on the outside. He's a number 10 when he comes inside. He's a centre forward when he's in the box. All he lacks, I'll tell you now, the only thing he's got to work on, mate, is probably some of his ball striking in certain scenarios and his heading. That's it. And the rest is all about where he decides he wants to be on a pitch. You know, how rounded is he at that age? And the responsibility he takes. Did you see, I don't know if you've seen it, there's a little clip of Arsene Wenger talking about him and praising him. And then Bukayo Saka's watching the video of Wenger praising him. And please, I urge you to find it. I think it's on beIN Sports, actually. And just look at his face when Wenger's talking to him. Just look at his face. And you're thinking, this is really meaning something to him. This is not an act. This guy might be a nice guy, smiley face, but he wants it, mate. He wants to be one of the best in the world. And he's well on the path.
Yeah. The sky's the limit. Let's put it that way. I have no idea where this goes. And it's funny because it shows you how hard it is to predict youth talent. Because 2 seasons ago, I thought he was excellent. And I thought, well, maybe Martinelli will develop into the better scorer and he'll be more of a playmaker. Maybe he'll even move inside, be an 8 or whatever. And nope. He's just going to be everything. He's going to be a goal scorer. He's going to be assist provider. He's going to move inside and outside. Did you notice he was coming inside quite a bit yesterday? Both of them were. Martinelli and Saka came inside quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, really interesting. So, by the way, the one he took with his right foot, he's added that, right? He twisted them in and out a little bit, took it with his right foot. Karius made the save.
Yeah,
just
nice.
Strings to the bow. You know what I mean? Used to not want to use his right foot as much. And the thing I noticed about that right foot shot, no backlift, right? So he has the ability to sort of fool you by taking it early. Lovely player. I want to ask you some questions about how we're going to integrate players returning. I want to talk about some of the subs, and Dan Burn denying Emil Smith Rowe the goal was probably the low moment of the night. I can get over Joe Willock scoring a goal because it's Joe Willock. It's beautiful. A couple other individual performances I want to talk about as well. So there's a lot still to get through, but I better get through one piece of business before my brain drips out of my ears. And that is, this podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. I might need to have a word with someone maybe later on today, the way I'm feeling. But yeah, therapy is serious business. And I think it's so tough because I think we're getting better as a society at talking about mental health. But I think we still talk about it sometimes as crisis management. And obviously, if you're in crisis, if you're hurting, if you are in a difficult place, you need someone to talk to. And while friends and family and partners can be those people, even coworkers at times, the problems you're experiencing may require someone who's professionally trained in working with you to get through those crises. But I also think we can look at therapy as a way to avoid being in crisis. When I saw a therapist for a number of years, it wasn't specifically a crisis, but it was a feeling that I was not working on myself in the way I needed to. And so I really can't speak highly enough of the process. I think what BetterHelp gives you is the ability to pair with someone that's a good fit for you. You don't have to find the extra time in your day to drive to an office and drive back. If that person doesn't fit with you, is there another office even within range of you to drive to? How expensive is that? I think BetterHelp makes it more affordable, more accessible, and really just normalizes the process of speaking to someone about your mental health and working on your mental health in just a way where it can become part of a daily regimen, the same way eating right or exercising would. So I think it's something to give a try. the copy here says, learn to make time for what makes you happy with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/vision today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/vision. Do it now, Clive. Is that enough of that?
Indeed.
Nailed it. Okay. So one thing about the Kai Havertz and Odegaard thing that I think is interesting, the way they were pressing, like the biggest thing in this game, I think the story of the game more than anything else, is probably two things for me. Is Jorginho's verticality in his passing and just the way he controlled the game. And then
Wonderful.
the way Kai Havertz and Odegaard shut down their ability to get out. Just completely shut it down. And it sort of makes me wonder, because I think as pressing duos go, they're probably our best too. But the other guy who's really, really good at it is Jesus. And so I wonder, how do you see that press evolving? Because Kai was not bought to be a 9 for us specifically. He's been playing more that 8.5.
You don't know that.
I know he wasn't bought to be that first and foremost, because when Jesus has been available, Kai has played 8, right? So I guess what I'm saying is, as Jesus gets back, and I think we underestimate his importance, I don't think we want to lose the dynamic of what we get with the pressing with Kai and Odegaard. But Jorginho has added verticality into our passing, as we've seen, and the ability to have 100 touches and 100 passes in a game, which I don't think is what Declan Rice ideally would do. I think he can do it, but I wouldn't say ideally. So that's an interesting, how do you square that circle between Jesus, Havertz, Rice, Odegaard, Jorginho? Is it simple that it's just a rotation depending on the game? Is there a way to get all of them in there? How do you think Mikel will reintegrate Jesus and not lose what he's got with that group?
You're doing your first 11 thing again, are you, Elliot?
I want to put them all on the pitch at the same time.
Yeah, well, you can't, because your boy Martinelli won't play, and then what are you going to do, right? So
cry into my pillow.
And then, Jorginho, I just read, he just made 25 appearances this year. I didn't expect that from him. Well,
I'm going to stop you then. You know what? Mm-hmm. I'm going to stop you because you said something, and I think it's a better conversation than what I led with. So let's do this then. Has Martinelli played well enough to keep his place from Jesus? Is the answer that Jesus, who has so much in his game, gets an opportunity to play off the left, and Kai and Odegaard are the pressing triggers up front. Jesus is off the left. Jorginho and Rice are in the game. Does Martinelli have to maybe give over to Jesus at times? I mean, I think that's an interesting question.
It depends. It depends on form, doesn't it? I mean, a couple of weeks ago, Trossard was keeping Jesus out of the team for many people.
Yeah.
Because he just basically unlocked us, and we just stuck, 11 goals in someone's net. You know what I mean? So, hey, you got to get comfortable with people. They're going to peak and trough. They're going to go up and down. We just spoke about Kiwior. I mean, look, none of us would think he's going to be here. He's had a miraculous sort of rise in 6 weeks. So it's going to happen. 55 games, 58 games, wherever it is, we hope. No one can do them in a straight line and be perfect all the time. So if you're picking a team for your life, I always have this conversation. I think I was talking to some of the patrons on Saturday earlier, and I always have
that was a great meetup, by the way. Really enjoyed that.
Yeah, really nice people, man. And then basically saying, pick a team for your life. Who's in it? It depends where it is. It depends where the game is. If you're picking a team for a home game, that's an interesting one. You pick a team for Liverpool at home or Man City at home. Depends how you want to play. And this is what I said earlier. I'm not worried about it. I'm more worried about picking the right style of game for the right opposition. I think that's it. So did Jesus play? Well, the last Jesus great performance I can remember, the Jesus at Sevilla away, for example, mate, he plays every game. So Jesus at Forest away was fine. Again, Havertz from the early season, he doesn't play. Havertz now in the front two. Look what he's done at Liverpool. Look what he's done at them. Look what he's done this game. He deserves time on the pitch. He deserves to play. And so it's look at Trossard. Trossard really unfortunate. Played excellently. Has one game where we couldn't find him. He came off the bench. I thought his attitude was brilliant when he came off the bench. I thought he was really sprightly. You really want to get about it. We got to get comfortable with the fact that if we want to be good, we're going to play every 4 days, and they can all get their time on the pitch.
And what's really interesting in a way? Sometimes I think the worst thing you can have is a player where you're like, I don't really know their position. But sometimes you can have a player where it's kind of the opposite. It's like they're very good in a couple different ones. And so Jesus can play 9 and Havertz can play 8, and I think everybody would say that's a good lineup. There are games where that's going to work great. Jesus can move out to the left, and Martinelli can have a day off, and Havertz can play up front and play 9, and everybody's going to love that. I mean, it's giving us those capabilities. Jorginho has added something to our game. Now, the interesting thing with Thomas Partey coming back will be what Partey kind of has is he can be a bit of Declan Rice and a bit of Jorginho, right? Jorginho can't cover the ground. Rice can. Rice maybe doesn't have some of the verticality and small space elusiveness of like a Partey. So it's a bit of a shift in qualities, but that group looks very strong. And suddenly all of the departments, up front, you say, well, we could go with Kai, we could go with Jesus, we could go with Trossard, we have Martinelli and Saka. Smith Rowe is looking bright when he comes in, right? That group looks robust. And now you say with Rice and Jorginho and Partey and Kai can kind of play a little bit of midfield, and that group's starting to fill out. And so all of these groups, you have some optionality, and it'll be interesting to see what Mikel regards as his team for his life, because that Porto return leg, for example, he's going to have to pick the team for his life. And I'll be very curious. Is he going to leave Jorginho out of that again and trust that we'll have the verticality without him? Is he going to put him in and not find a place for one of those dynamic forwards like a Jesus if he's back and in form? Very interesting decisions to be made. The one thing we know...
What would you do, Elliot, for Porto? What would you do?
So I will admit, I think Jesus is probably underrated, and in the Champions League in particular, he has an unbelievable record. I want to see, does he play against Sheffield United or Brentford first, though? Because I'm not starting him against Porto if he hasn't played. If he's played, I might go with Rice, Kai, Odegaard, and Jesus up front, right? So a midfield of Rice, Kai, Odegaard. But I am inclined to want, especially against a Porto team that was very organized, I want that vertical passing. So I'm going to probably try to find a way to get Jorginho in there. And if that means that Jesus does go out and play on the left instead of like a Martinelli, I'm fine with it. If it means Kai plays 9, I would even say, and people are going to roll their eyes at me for this, given how good he's been, if Kai has to come out of the team and it's Rice, Jorginho, and Odegaard with Jesus at 9 and Kai's on the bench, I don't think that's a problem. I do think the question is what that does to our pressing. But if there's one guy in the team that I think can press as well as Kai or better, it might be Jesus. It depends for me on whether he gets him played. Well, that's what I mean. Whether he plays in the next 2 games and how he looks. We're fortunate again, though, right, Clive? Because it's over a week until Sheffield United, then a week until Brentford, then the 3 days to Porto. So we have some time to figure that out. What I was going to say, though, is there are players that we don't play without. And I saw an incredible stat. I think our win percentage with Saliba and Gabriel starting is 73%. And with even one of them out, it's 55%. That partnership is, I think, the elite center back pairing in the league. And I, that's the one that just has to stay there and always has to be there. Once again, I thought they looked great in this game. Saliba, a nice thing about this game is some players who had maybe rocky experiences in Porto got back on good footing, and one of them is definitely Saliba. I think he was back to his best against Newcastle. What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, touch wood, right? They're also getting through, because of the way we pressure from the front, they're getting through these games quite economically. They're not being run around into corners. You see what I mean? They enjoy themselves going forward, getting onto the end of set pieces. They're playing in a nice rhythm, a nice level of efficiency physically. I love how they play. I just think we've grown so used to that base, particularly if Rice came back in there as well, the 3 of them, and the control we have from the back. When we do go backwards, goes back to our goalkeeper, and 9 times out of 10 he looks after it. But what he doesn't do is he doesn't encourage people onto him, so we can get a chance to play. You don't realise when that's not quite right until you have somebody who can't look after it, because they'll find the dope and they'll get after him. So that base is really, really strong. And so, I think for me, I'm a bit more of a pragmatist. If you look at last season, what have we improved? We've improved our defensive stability, and I think our emphasis in our coaching has been a lot more about how we are defensively switched on and our recovery time of getting the ball back. And the whole emphasis of the whole team has been based on that. I think that was the bedrock, and we focused on that, thinking our attack will get there eventually, and it's got there now. So while you've got your defense sorted out, you're not getting smashed. You're not losing games. You're not losing games on data. Performance is there. You got a solid floor, and you build from there. And that's how you build a house, right? You build it with foundations. You build it with principles, and then you add the stuff on top. And the things that we hope for, and we get into transfer mode, are the things to add on top to allow us to be more consistently creative in a forward direction, and maybe have some speed forward cover for our younger players who are still only 22 that play a lot of minutes. It just makes sense to have another forward that could offer a certain dynamism. So the future's looking bright, mate. The foundations are well in place. It's up to us now to add to them, maybe mentally just get over the hump when it comes to the big stuff, the trophies.
What about the guy behind them, David Raya? I was on his. So it happened down my side. I was on Kiwior's side in the first half. Yeah. They tried to run him twice at the end of the half. Raya came out and cleared it. Yeah. Obviously, a couple good moments of distribution, a couple others that didn't find their man. But you really just see it. He steps into like a sweeper defender position when we have the ball. He's not playing in goal at all.
Comes like a centre half, almost.
Yeah. And the comfort that the players have going back to him is just clear. There were a couple nervy moments, I think, for the fans, but as a player, he just looks super comfortable on it. Once again, I feel like I have to mention Raya for a confident and comfortable performance, but maybe the thing is just that we can stop mentioning it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The guy doesn't have any saves to make, but he's doing other things that are really important to what we want to do.
Yeah, he claims crosses beautifully. And when he runs, Elliot, I think he had to sprint this game, as you said, to come out. When he runs like a footballer. Doesn't run like a goalkeeper. You see what I mean? He runs like a player. Yeah. And so he's a proper athlete. He moves really, really well. Hey, look, for me, I wish he was 2 inches taller. I'm honest with you. Yeah, and because I do feel sometimes, just on occasion, he can just look a little bit small. Just on occasions, and but he makes up for that with his bounding ability, right? So, but sometimes you just can't physically get there because you just can't. And as soon as that happens, I say, well, he's too small on occasions. Probably massively unfair, but just a gut feeling with my eye. But yeah, look, the way we play now, he fits it, doesn't it? It's a principle decision. It's a football principle decision. It's not a beauty contest, right? It's not a love contest. It really is about football. And you look at Mikel. This man's not messing about, is he? He's not messing about. If you can spend that amount of time on throw-ins and corners, and you think he's not going to mess about, he's looking for every single margin possible, isn't he? It isn't about having happy, clappy people around. When he bought Jorginho, was it 10, 11 million? Remember that? And I'm thinking, oh no, back to Chelsea again. What are you doing, mate? What are you doing? Do you not know these Arsenal fans? You know what I mean? Chelsea fans are giggling. You've got Jorginho only passes backwards, and he's old, can't move. And we think, let's see what happens here. Now you see his role in the team, his coaching role in the team, his leadership. Is for a young team, you can see why. And I can remember when Mikel first came in, he was looking at 2 players to buy, and one was Jorginho early, and one was John Stones. When John Stones was stepping on the ball a lot, not the John Stones of today. And I can remember people saying, "What is up with him? What's he doing?" And I wish he'd have gotten both when he first came in, because John Stones hadn't signed a contract then, etc., etc. So he had an eye for what he wanted to do, right? And he's delivering.
Yeah. It's a weird thing I just noticed? Jorginho's older than Mohamed El Neni. Like if I had just asked you that top of your head, would you have guessed that? You know what I mean?
He's 32,
it's just interesting.
32,
yeah. It's interesting how a footballer can feel more in his prime than another footballer. The thing that I think we sometimes forget, these are human beings. They are not FIFA video game characters, right?
Yeah.
Some bodies develop differently, hold up differently.
Yeah.
You have guys who, like a Cristiano Ronaldo and an Olivier Giroud, right, who in their mid-30s are fitter than some players who are just done by 28. So you just don't know what you're getting. But in Jorginho, we definitely got something special. That's for sure.
Can I just say something on him? I haven't always been there with Jorginho. So I don't want to sound like an after timer. It took me a while to work it out. And funny enough, I worked it out a bit more with Declan Rice coming in. I think I can see a bit more as to why, and the same for Trossard as well. Although Trossard came in house on fire, sometimes you can just see what a bit of wisdom does. Just a bit of wisdom of movement and thought and touch and quality. And for all the young, we love all the young players, right? Because they've got the future ahead of them, and we don't know where their season's going to be. But you need some blokes in there every now and again that are a bit. They've got just ready to go. Ready to go, and that's what they are.
Yeah. I don't think many of the sub performances warranted too much discussion, except for Smith Rowe. He does look bright when he comes on, and he's different. He just has a knack for getting in the box and being in shooting position, and he gets his shot up very quickly. He was very unlucky with Dan Burn clearing off the line. This is a tough one, I think, because Smith Rowe is a player that we've been waiting for. We know the talent is in there, although we remember it from a long time ago. I'm not sure we know exactly what he is right now. His body hasn't held up, as everybody knows, but he does look bright when he comes on now. Everybody was trying to suck the ball into the back of the net when he took that shot. It's just, as we mentioned, in all departments, we look very, very strong. Do you see a path for Smith Rowe this season to being an impact player for us? Or are we going to have to really exercise some patience and understand there's a lot of talent in this team right now, and he can come in and play a role in a bit part way, but maybe there isn't that clear path for him to be a major contributor?
Well, we were talking earlier on about getting Jesus into the team, and we were debating that, right? And now you moved on to Smith Rowe about debating getting him into the group. The conversations are light years apart, Elliot. We need a bit of honesty here. We need a bit of honesty about where the player is at this moment in time. Things can change. Kiwior is a good example of what someone can do, when they're given a run of games. Maybe that situation was forced and we wouldn't see what we're seeing today. But we need a bit of honesty about maybe some of the Highlanders and where they are. Today's not the day to do it for me because it's a joyous day. But they've got work to do, right? They've got work to do, and not everyone can play. So when you get a chance, you've got to make it really, really work. Really, really work. You've got to change people's opinion. You look back to the early point in the season. So of those three players, the one that's had the most opportunity has been Eddie. Right? He got himself an England cap, and you think, well, you know what? Well done. Good young player. That young player, I said, you told me this. Havertz is younger than him. Right? So we have to open our eyes up now to these players who they're men playing football in their prime. Right? Get into their prime, Reece Nelson, I thought he looked sharp. When he came on. And I look at him, I think, of the three, have you got the attitude? Have we as a squad got the need for someone who can play both sides, look after the ball, and who's really sharp physically? Maybe it's time to move on. We don't know. I think there's an honest discussion to have about them in the summer, about where they are, where they're going, versus other people in the squad. Fabio Vieira was on the bench yesterday. When we see him, we're going to have an opinion about him versus those Smith Rowe, Nelson. Where does he fit with that group? Does he go or do they stay? There's more to this discussion, Elliot, and it's one we should have in the near future, no doubt.
The Eddie situation is really interesting, by the way. I would love to pick Mikel's brain about it because, he started 9 of our first 11 or 12 Premier League fixtures this season, right? And by the way, I'm not talking about Sheffield United and Burnley. I'm talking about Newcastle away and City at home and Tottenham at home and Manchester United at home. He started all those games, and now it looks like the only way he's getting on is if it's a comfortable game late for 15 minutes. That's a really interesting one to me. Do you find it as interesting that he was so high up the pecking order earlier in the season? Because I think there was a moment, I know there was for me, where I'm like, well, I don't get it. Let's just play Kai there. Let's play Trossard there. But Eddie did get his chances. It feels similar to me like last season where he had his run and Mikel felt it wasn't clicking, to use that word, and moved away from him. Do you find it sort of curious that we went through that period this season and where he is now in terms of his sort of position in the squad?
It depends on your priorities, what you're trying to assimilate. So in the team this year, we've got Havertz and Rice being brought into this team, right? So that's basically 2/3 of your midfield just being changed. And so rather than get someone in where you brought him in potentially to be, more used more often as a midfielder, but then can be used as a striker. That's what I feel. That Havertz has brought in to do two jobs. You want to really teach him how to do the primary job you brought him for. And so to do that, you need to play someone else at centre forward. And that's what he did. You don't bring someone in and say, look, I want to make you an attacking top of the box player and then play you up front. Just like Chelsea did. So I think his priority was to assimilate Havertz into the group, and Eddie was a beneficiary of that. While Jesus was out. So yeah, he's had his opportunity. He can't say he's not had his opportunities. So whereas Smith Rowe has been unlucky not to get opportunities with health, and Nelson has had some opportunities and done quite well in some and been steady in others. So it's a development question for all of them and the squad as a whole, Elliot. And in the end, we need a number. This is a challenge I'm not aware of, mate. Is the homegrown aspect. There's 3 homegrown players there.
Yeah.
We can't just bin everybody, so we'll see.
I think it's difficult for us sometimes as fans to realize the distance we've traveled from a quality standpoint. Getting into the Arsenal of last season was one thing. Getting into the Arsenal 2 seasons ago was a different thing. Getting into the Arsenal 3 seasons ago, I mean, I heard a rumor they were trying to get a shirt on you. Like now where we
Big
are.
shirt.
Yeah, double X. But now where we are, and this is why the job for Edu is going to get more difficult, right? Because what do you buy? I've got a lot of people coming up to me when we talk about the summer saying, I don't think I want Victor Osimhen. Victor Osimhen's going to go somewhere for 120 million, and you got Arsenal fans turning their nose up. And I am too. I'm not sure he's the right guy for us. But it's just the point that, can you imagine 2 or 3 seasons ago turning our nose up at something like that, or even an Ivan Toney? The distance we've traveled is so great that now the player that can come in and, I mean, think of what it's going to take to make this team look better than it does already. We just went through 6 games with a, plus 24 or whatever we are, plus 25 goal difference in 6 games. I mean, and we've allowed 6 shots on target, I think.
Yeah.
This team is at a very, very unique level that's going to be very hard to improve upon. And that's why there are players that can't get in the side.
Yeah, I think if you're looking at this, and you said it earlier, we are collective and we do things in a collective way. There's a moment in this game where the ball, for once, the only time when I think Ben White pushed on and the ball got cut out, Saka was high, and they flipped it out to Isak. And you look at the corner of the screen, and Odegaard is sprinting back like his life depends on it. And he is like, I'm not seeing him move that quickly. And Isak gets a shot off, he goes over the bar. That's the collective that we're after. We're not after people walking about thinking I'm the man, I'm standing here. Do you see what I mean? For all the people that are not sure about Kai Havertz, that's absolutely fine. But he plays to the collective. Look at his work rate. Look what he does for his teammates. Look how he offers himself to his teammates. If you're looking to build on this, it's those type of individuals. And funny enough, Isak could be one of them. He works quite. This was not a day to look at him, but he is a very hard-working, pressing player that can play central and wide. If you said to me Isak or Tony, it's Isak all day long. It would take me 0.2 of a second to make that decision. Because what he offers and what he transmits. So, and that's why I look at the players, and you're in the ground now. You're seeing it with your own eyes. You get a feeling. When these pundits are talking about Arsenal fans getting excited, you don't get excited over people you can't connect to. You don't get excited over a club you can't connect to. You get excited because you feel connected. And players that disconnect from you, then that's it. Sorry, mate, it ain't gonna work. So whatever happens in the future of our squad, we need more people that are not just me, everybody can feel connected to, because then we feel invested, and then our support grows and everything. Everything rolls from there, Elliot. That's the momentum.
It is weird because I was sitting just past halfway on the side we attacked in the second half. And at halftime, so they were attacking down the other side at halftime. Not the other side, but the other half, so it's a little bit further away. And at halftime, I remember thinking, I haven't seen the players over here. There hasn't been anybody over here. It's just incredible. I mean, for the whole first half, I know it's not literally true, but it felt like they had never crossed over to where I was sitting, which is just past the halfway line. It is as dominant as I have seen us look. And so I think the question becomes, can we do it? And everybody seems to be asking, can Arsenal do it? And on Match of the Day, they said to Ian Wright, can Arsenal win the title? He's like, of course they can win the title. What are we doing here? If they can't win the title, what are we doing here? Look at, 6-0, 5-0, 3-1. And I have to say about Mikel Arteta, when the All or Nothing documentary came out, his team talks, Clive, were a big talking point. Some people thought they were cringe. Some people thought they were great. But I think it's very clear that whatever he's doing with his team talks, I do think he's really mastered motivation, because you beat Liverpool. Then what do? You go to West Ham. Okay, you could drop a level, right? You just beat Liverpool. You go 6-0. You just beat West Ham away 6-0. Now you're going to a terrible Burnley side. You're reading your headlines. You're really good. You take it easy. 5-0, right? You lose away at Porto. What are they thinking? Revenge. And I think the fact that Odegaard referenced getting revenge on them for that last game in his post-match comments tells you what Mikel has been chirping in their ear, right? And I can promise you, things like the Porto lap of appreciation that they did after the Galeno goal, he's going to find the way to motivate them. And so the last thing I just want to touch on, we currently sit 2 points off the top. It's 60, 59, 58. Everybody on 26 games played. Plus 39 goal difference, top of the league. The Arsenal team that doesn't score, 62 goals, one fewer than Liverpool. Defensively, 23 goals. Two fewer conceded than Liverpool, 3 fewer conceded than Manchester City. But on expected goals, 18 expected goals allowed. That is 13 fewer than Liverpool and 6.5 fewer than City. We are plus 34 in expected goal difference, which is a solid 7 better than City and 9 better than Liverpool. The way we are playing right now to suggest we can't do it is folly. There's a couple of games where I'm going to have to go win that are going to be hard. But when you look at it right now, where's your meter in terms of the can Arsenal do it meter, the league table and our chances for the title?
I feel if we do it, it won't be with the players we currently see right now. They can't do all of the games. And so for me, if we do it, it's because we get some people back healthy and they hit form to supplement these guys. And that's the truth. We're looking at 12 players a moment we've used in the last week and a half, and that can't work. Right? So Jesus is closed. Partey's meant to be closed. Zinchenko's meant to be closed. Again, we need the different ways of playing on a different day. And if we need to change because we got something wrong, we need to be able to do it. Right? So, and I think that will come real quick. We'll know it. We'll know it'll sweep over us, right? Like a cloud when you think we need to do something else. And you need that option. If it doesn't have that option, you will feel it as a group. So I think that moment is to come in it when we touch wood, we get past Porto, then we start to think about a Champions League quarter final. It could be at Bayern Munich or something like that, right? So then that game slotted in between the key league games. The week changes. Our lives change when we look at the games. Look at the league games now. You slip in some European games in there, and everything looks different. It looked different for Liverpool, looked different for City. Arteta looked buoyant after this game. Buoyant, quietly, really, really happy because he knew this was a test. This is the team he wants to build, a team that can go away in Europe and then play on a Saturday night and then do that with that level of intensity. That is what he's working towards. That's a major moment for us. I was worried about it. I'll be straight. I was worried about it. I thought, this is a time when you slip over. This is a time when normally Wednesday, so it's a Sunday 2:00 game. We didn't have that opportunity. And I was worried. But hey, look, we got through it. And not only get through it, we smashed them. We smashed them. And think about how you felt when that goal at St. James's Park went in and everyone was desperate to find a reason to give it and make out that we were off our heads for thinking it wasn't a goal. well, you hold that, and then you do that, what we did on Saturday night, and I'm so pleased, so pleased.
And don't look now, but all of a sudden Liverpool, who really didn't have to do much before now, have a cup final today and an FA Cup tie midweek and a tough game at the weekend and Sparta Prague away and then City and then Sparta Prague at home and then the Merseyside derby away and then another FA Cup tie and then the next round of the Europa League, which they'll probably be in, and no one's saying, like, I love the FA Cup. I do. But you look at what we got coming up. It's not going to be easy. But maybe, just maybe, a few fewer fixtures and a few fewer fixtures being rearranged into a very busy April and May time period.
Yeah.
The margins are that tight. They really are that tight. And Liverpool are starting to pick up a couple injuries here and there.
More than a couple.
It's going to be those kind of things that decide the league. These are three very good teams. But I honestly believe no one is playing better Premier League football right now than Arsenal. And if we just keep doing that, we have every right to expect we'll be there at the very end. Am I saying we're going to win the league at Old Trafford? I'm not saying definitely. I'm just saying probably. I think we can leave it there.
But hotels, my son. We've got a big night out.
God, I got to go to Manchester in May. All right, fine. You talked me into it. Lots more to come this week. Of course, that video travel journal, if you want to see what the European away day was like. Many of you listening already know what a European away day is like, but if you'd like to check that out, that's up over on Patreon. And more than anything, just love everybody got to meet this week. I can tell you, Clive and I have become close friends, obviously, through doing this pod as Tim and I and Paul and I. But we don't get to see each other as much as I'd like. We see each other through a screen, but to travel with you, Clive, was brilliant. Like just to spend days traveling through Porto and have that one extra day on Friday to walk around the city and be together. Really, really loved spending the time with you and had a nice dinner out with Tim. So, that kind of stuff. It reminds you that the football, as much as it can drive you nuts, it brings you together with people you're going to know for the rest of your life. So really special chance to do that.
Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. And I didn't see Tim this time, but yeah, Tim's top class, right? Me and Tim talk a lot.
We had a 4.5 hour dinner the other night. I don't know that he recovered from it, frankly. so good times, though.
But yeah, really, and he looked after me brilliantly in Portugal. So thank you very much for that. And yeah, I will say we met some really nice people. I have so many names, but we're very fortunate. I don't want to sound sycophantic. We're so fortunate with our audience, and for all those that came up to us, just thank you very much for being so kind, really.
Yeah, could not have said it any better, so I'll leave it there before I do something wrong. Clive's on Twitter at ClivePFC. Thanks, Clive.
Thank you very much.
It's Sheffield United next, and you don't want to get carried away. You don't want to get ahead of yourself. I don't think Mikel will let them get ahead of themselves. But I'm going to do my outro, and maybe, just maybe, there's a chance at it. We love you, and we'll talk to you after Arsenal 10, Sheffield United 0.